And we are live. How's it going, everyone? Today I'm super excited. We have a very special guest from a project that's building a strategy game that combines space exploration, territorial conquest, and political domination, all through an open economy and really just bringing the next level of massively multiplayer online games. So a lot is going on here. Luckily, as I mentioned, I do have a guest, Michael Wagner, the CEO of Star Atlas. So amazing to have you on, man. How's it going?
It's going great. It's great to be here. I always love catching up with people from the Solana team. So thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's amazing to have you on. And just to start, can you outline what the goal of Star Atlas is and a bit of the lore of what's going on?
Well, that could be quite an extended answer, but
Oh,
let's
for
just
sure.
start with yeah. I mean, let's just start with kind of our entry point, the tip of the spear, as we call it, and that is to develop out, an extremely high quality, so AAA level quality, grand strategy, space exploration, MMO, or massively multiplayer online game. Obviously the kind of the disruptive factor of what we're doing is building this, as you said, on an open economy that's founded on blockchain and cryptocurrency. So incorporating things like NFTs, delivering true asset ownership in scarce supply to our players, incorporating crypto native assets like Atlas and Polis. We do operate a dual token ecosystem, so Atlas and Polis, as well as integrating things like DeFi and these other crypto primitives directly into the gameplay modal, providing access to this alternative financial ecosystem that is crypto to the players and users that we're bringing into the game. So we see enormous benefits and advantages in being able to introduce these structures and this ecosystem that is crypto to users, and vice versa. A massive potential in attracting people who would otherwise, not exposed to crypto in any capacity, maybe don't have a thorough understanding or comprehension of crypto, but being able to bring them in, entice them into the crypto ecosystem through a very enjoyable gameplay experience. So that's our highest and top priority right now, is building out this high quality gaming product and application. But in the future, that gaming application will just be one that lives within the Star Atlas metaverse. And metaverse is very buzzworthy worthy right now. A lot of people are talking about it. There's major acquisitions going on, like Microsoft, making the acquisition of Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. Facebook, rebranding its holding co to Meta. There's enormous potential in the potential economic value of the metaverse of the future. So these kind of alternative economies based in digital environments. And so that's where we're taking Star Atlas. And as we evolve into that in time, it will be more about building out tool sets and utility and functionality and features that enable the creators and entrepreneurs of the future to build within our ecosystem and continuously enhance what it is that Star Atlas as a universe actually is.
Yeah, and that's amazing, Michael. I think something that has really stood out to me is the long-term angle you guys have taken to this and how you're really looking to develop this with a ton of time. I mean, for users that really dig in, that's scratching the high level surface of what there is. I mean, you guys have a very fruitful lore that's super exciting. And I think that just goes to show of the quality, what you guys are looking to do. And it's really exciting for the ecosystem to see something like the team that you guys are building at Star Atlas really come in and set the stage for what is to be expected in this new frontier of gaming. And this segues pretty closely to my next question, just asking about the team's background and even just a little more context of how did Star Atlas all come together, this massive idea. And it definitely seems like you guys are around 50 to 60 team members. So this is no short task by any means.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate the comment on the long-term vision. I do like to emphasize that, we're thinking in timelines of 100 years plus, honestly. I mean, strategically, we're thinking in terms of 10 to 20 years, but we do envision Star Atlas as a platform as being something that can live on essentially in perpetuity. We can get into, how the governance structure works and, where stakeholding with Polis actually has an impact on effectuating change across the platform. But the idea is that we can ultimately turn this over to the world at some point, and it will consistently evolve based on those contributions from other creators and innovators, as I said, from all over the world. Once the product is fully decentralized and becomes this open metaverse, then it is something that will consistently change and maintain attraction to people over time. So this differs significantly from, say, building a gaming product, gaming franchise, even, where the most successful MMOs in history have been around for, call it, 20 years. EVE Online is a great example of that, and also a space exploration game. We think of this again as kind of a much broader opportunity set that is more inclusive to the global population that will live on forever, or potentially can. With respect to the team, this is one of the accomplishments I'm most proud of over the past year. We started last year in January with just 4 to 5 people on the team, including the co-founders. Today, we have closer to 250 people working with us in total. Now, I would say the way that breaks down is about 80 on the creative and game design side. So that includes things like concept artists and modelers and game designers and technical artists. We have another 40 or so just on the engineering team right now. Engineering is broken up across web development, blockchain development, SRE and RevOps, so kind of the backend Web 2.0 cloud infrastructure that we host on, and then also some elements of game development as well. So working in Unreal Engine. Did not mention that earlier, but we are building this in Unreal Engine 5, and what that's going to deliver is the cinematic, hyper-realistic quality of visual fidelity across the game. So we think that that's a very attractive feature, and it's a great platform for us to be building on. The rest is really in marketing, communications, operations, finance, all the stuff that you need to run a business, and permit the developers and the engineers to do the work that they need to do to bring this product to life. So in terms of experience, I always mention this, but I'm incredibly grateful for the talent that we've attracted. We have many entrepreneurial-minded individuals that were attracted to this concept of Star Atlas and actually reached out to us. Our recruiting, I don't want to diminish the amount of effort that goes into recruiting, because we are hiring aggressively. Almost 1 person per day joins our team. But with that said, we have there's so much interest in this concept that we've revealed that we have people reaching out to us every day as well. And so it's managing that pipeline, but finding these passionate people who are enthusiastic about the potential for an open metaverse and about AAA gaming on chain and play to earn. So it's been fantastic to recruit all of these really talented individuals that want to bring that passion. As we said, as we like to discuss internally, it's one thing to capture someone's ability, so their head, their thinking to create something. It's something entirely different to capture their heart. That's the hard part, and we're getting both. We're getting the head, the ability, and the heart, the passion and enthusiasm that it is exemplified in the products and features that we release to the community. In terms of co-founders, from the game design standpoint, so Danny Floyd is our chief product officer. He's been working in the AAA game development industry, or had been, for greater than 2 decades. So he was actually working on Earth and Beyond at Westwood Studios out of Las Vegas. Kind of coincidentally, I didn't know him, but back in 2002, 2003, this was one of the first space exploration themed MMOs that was to come out, and it was going head to head with EVE Online. EVE Online ultimately beat them out, but nevertheless, Danny ended up going and working for EA when that got acquired, when Westwood Studios got acquired. And he continues to bring that expertise in game development and design to our core product today, which, as I said, is that AAA game. Jacob Floyd's his brother. He's our chief technology officer, and naturally he's leading up all of those different departments. Has extensive background in blockchain development, and in fact, part of the reason Star Atlas exists today is through a previous entity that I had launched in 2016. It was a project called the Tokes platform, and still operational today. But the purpose there was to deliver this decentralized financial infrastructure that was, blockchain technology, to the legal cannabis industry throughout the United States, facilitating things like electronic payments and banking, which is an area that industry in particular does not typically have access to because of the disparity in state versus federal legalization. So I was operating that business, facilitated a merger with a group that Jacob and Danny worked at. It was called the Cannabis Hemp Exchange. That merger saw 3 employees join us at Tokes, and we were working on that product, for 4 or 5 years together. It wasn't until mid 2020 when things were a bit slow in the crypto market and slow with that business in particular, that we started to assess alternative opportunities. And we were looking at the trends in DeFi and in NFTs and this kind of nascent stage of blockchain gaming. And what we saw and identified was a real opportunity to deliver a product that was superior to anything that was existing in the market at that time. So a lot of the mechanics were rudimentary, so kind of like turn-based games or rudimentary graphics, card style games. We wanted to bring real-time strategy game on chain, and that's where we also identified Solana. I do want to mention here Pablo as well. Pablo Quiroga is our 4th co-founder and chief revenue officer, and I got connected with him in 2018 through a company that he was launching in New Tropics, but also because he has a deep network in cannabis. So cannabis in many ways kind of brought us all together, but operating on the tertiary aspects of cannabis, not necessarily as operators. And, I have to say, it's, again, one of the things I'm really grateful for is just this rockstar team. We all have very complementary skill sets. I guess I should mention what I bring to the table is this background in traditional finance and capital markets, previously working as a portfolio manager and personally as a chartered financial analyst or CFA charter holder. I have a pretty thorough comprehension on determining the intrinsic value of assets. That's a lot of the financial modeling that I would do. And then also looking at various economic structures. And the economy is really a critical part, as you pointed out, to what we're building at Star Atlas, and creating a sustainable economy in a game like this, in an MMO, was one of the primary objectives that we have as a team.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just want to pick that apart a little bit there. And I think it's amazing how much my rough estimations of how big the team were was blown out of the water. How you guys are well above 200 members now is incredible. And it's just a testament back to how we started laying down a lot of this context, that you guys are really looking to build a massive online game that is competitive with some of these other AAA platforms. And you guys understand that this is a massive undertaking. I also think that the fact that you guys have founders have history and have worked together on other successful projects is super massive and beneficial to know that the team can click together. And overall, just the fact that knowing that you guys have a cohesive and very well put together team is something that maybe we don't necessarily see so much in the crypto space. And so taking something as nascent and blockchain gaming and giving it your guys' all is very amazing, just to see how it's proliferating and moving forward. I know you started to segue a bit into economics and how important this is into the game, and I definitely want to touch on this. Before we dive too far in, I'm just curious more on the high level aspects. For people who maybe aren't familiar with gaming or haven't even been close to the blockchain gaming space, how can people expect to make money, earn income, and have value exist within this buzzword such as the metaverse?
Sure. Yeah, and I do just want to footnote quickly on the number that I shared in terms of people working on the project. That is inclusive of some third-party vendors that we've engaged with on exclusive contracts. Spearsoft and VertPaint are 2 of these entities that are notable. Spearsoft has worked with major AAA studios in the past, developing out specific features of AAA games on their behalf. And so that was the approach we took as well. Given the urgency of bringing a product to market, right, and essentially being now publicly accountable because of the way that we rolled out our announcement, we wanted to ensure that we could scale rapidly. And so we have, some 35 members that are exclusive to us that are working in Spearsoft. But the figure that I shared about our total personnel is inclusive of that. I just want to make sure fully transparent there. But with all that said, I definitely see us growing this team to, probably 500 or 600 people by the end of this year, and I could see that doubling again in 2023. So, very aggressive objectives and goals for talent acquisition going into the future, and it is a massive undertaking. To your exact point, we fully appreciate that, and fully appreciate the human capital requirements that are going to be necessary to successfully build what we've the ambitious vision that we've laid out. So, in terms of being able to earn within the metaverse, again, this is one of those categories or kind of topics where the opportunity is virtually limitless. Let me start with the game component of it, the play to earn element, which is where I think the immediate opportunity lies. And within Star Atlas, our core mechanics are space exploration, territory control, political domination. Again, as you laid out in that intro, space exploration, this is something that not only captivates the human imagination, exploration in general. People want to go discover new areas. It's why the Earth is populated today. It's why we're trying to terraform and build colonies on the moon and on Mars, and who knows how far out in the future. The idea within Star Atlas is that you can not only discover new areas of space, you can conquer those areas, and you can capitalize on that activity. Now, there's many different career paths you can take, both within the ship in terms of where you want to operate. You can be the pilot, the captain, you could be a gunner, you could be a janitor if you wanted to be a janitor on a ship. These are all things that individual players, operating a ship yourself with NPCs as your crew members, you can also do things like be a data runner. Now, a data runner, their job is to go out and explore space, just like unveil the fog of war, discover these new territories or regions, and then sell that data to other players. So that's one method they can use to monetize. You can be a freighter, a transporter, you can be a fighter, you can be a stealth ship. There's many different categories of ships out there. Core idea is that through participation of gameplay, you're going to be earning Atlas, which is our in-game currency, medium of exchange. And I'll maybe a little bit later, we can get into how we perceive Star Atlas, the game, and also the metaverse as really this independent sovereign state or nation state. And we operate in this digital environment very much like a country would operate with respect to foreign policy, monetary policy, fiscal policy, things like foreign exchange, imports, exports, all of this. Those are all considerations for us across our economic modeling. So there's space exploration, and then there's the concept of kind of land operations. So productive land. Now, right now, we've prescribed two different formats of productive land, and that's either farming or mining. Now, farming, this is naturally produces food. Food is an input and resource that's necessary for everybody within the universe to be able to operate. I'd also maybe just caveat here quickly and mention that all activities within Star Atlas are treated very much like micro businesses. So if you're piloting a ship, you have expenses, just like any business or entrepreneur would encounter in real life. You have to refuel your ship, you have to repair it, you have to replace equipment, and you have to feed your crew members, right? So where does that food come from? Well, some other player that's operating a farm is going to produce that food and sell that to the players that need it to continue to operate. Likewise,
Detail is incredible. I just want to jump in here and throw that on there.
anytime, because I can just ramble forever. So yeah, but mining operations to me is one of the kind of the more exciting components of economic design, because it is true productive output and capacity, and also creates opportunities for labor and employment, people to actually operate this equipment in game. But with mining, you're extracting resources like minerals. They get refined through the refinement process. You get refined materials, and that ultimately enters into the supply chain, wherein players are able to craft goods and service or goods out of that. Now, those goods most likely initially are going to be ship NFTs. And what I would point out here again is that while we initially are selling a finite supply of ships through our Galactic asset offering, over time, we as an entity stop selling these NFTs. The ability to satisfy new user demand for ships will be fulfilled by the players that have crafting capabilities. So if you're operating mining and crafting facilities, you can mint ships that then can be sold to other players, new users entering in the metaverse. And I see the opportunity for player adoption, user adoption of this digital environment to be enormous. Really, the global population, billions of users is what we see interacting with this. And where you, if that sounds absurd, you can think about platforms like Facebook that have 3.5 billion users for social interaction. And social interaction and human experience will be just one component of the metaverse. E-commerce will be another, education will be another, workplace experiences will be another, right? Think about how many digital nomads there are out there working remotely from all over the world. Well, the place that they might actually collaborate is inside the metaverse. And then there's gaming, which is this massive attraction because it's an entertaining experience. So in any case, the idea is that over time, we turn over the means of production to the user base, to the people that are actively engaged in gameplay, and enable them to monetize their time through that activity of selling their goods and their services to other people in the metaverse. I'll just close really quickly because this could get extended again with the metaverse discussion, but people will be operating businesses inside Star Atlas that are unrelated to gameplay entirely. You can think about the Zooms of the world, right? As I said, the Facebook of the world, Amazon.com being displaced by opportunities to purchase goods in three-dimensional, hyper-realistic space, and even using things like AR, VR, haptic suits for sensory feedback to the individual, so that you might be purchasing an NFT that's a pair of shoes, let's say, for example, but you also get the physical good delivered to your house. And the bonus you get is actually the digital apparel that you get to equip on your avatar. When we talk about that, every industry that exists in the world today will be displaced in some way or impacted in some way by experiences inside the metaverse, just like the internet disrupted the world and global industries 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So that's kind of where we see this all going.
Yeah, that's incredibly interesting. And just wrapping back towards the gaming aspect, you're touching on how this can actually onboard a ton of users. And something that is just very easy for me to see the parallels is people are already playing games so much and willing to buy in-game items. And I think EVE Online is obviously such a great example there. So just seeing those parallels are massive for me. It's interesting how you guys are also thinking about these secondary and tertiary effects of what building this metaverse can really be. And I think that'll be super interesting as we see it develop more and more. And specifically, just the idea of how much demand there is currently for something like gaming and putting it on the blockchain. Still sticking a little bit towards this category before we get too far towards the metaverse. And I definitely want to probably tie things up with that closer to the end, just because it seems like you have a lot to add on there, Michael. But what I would say to that is just in the idea of having an open economy, there's so much attention to detail here. What are really the thoughts behind this on how you're able to make something like this sustainable? Is it a matter of looking at other models and tweaking them a bit? How have you guys came across this, considering it seems like there are so many variables?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and as I said, it's one of our core mandates. So the first mandate, though, and I don't want to diminish in any way what we're building across the game, because our first mandate is to develop out this engaging and entertaining gameplay experience. Star Atlas as a game should stand on its own feet without the financial incentives and economic mechanics that we're building on the back end. We see that as enhancements. Right, the economy is the foundation to the metaverse, but it's also these financial incentives are intended to enhance the initial gameplay, not supplant it or take priority over it in any way. So, bringing the game to market and making sure it's fun is critically important, because that is what's going to attract the masses into Star Atlas, but also into crypto. Right, and we see enormous benefits in bringing the masses into crypto. Crypto's taken over the world. You and I were chatting just a little bit before the call about Miami and what's going on down there. And I mean, even for anybody that watched the Super Bowl, I think there were 4 or 5 different crypto commercials, including Coinbase and FTX, and there were a few others in there as well. And it just is kind of mind blowing. But we think we're going to accelerate it with gaming as well. So your question, sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but your question was with respect to how do we monitor or assess the economy itself, I believe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of it is modeling it off of the way that the real world functions today. So thinking about productive cycles and kind of the circular elements of repurposing and the utilization of things like cash proceeds, which in the case of Star Atlas is Atlas. What's important for anybody that's building a blockchain game is that you don't have unidirectional flows of capital or extraction based flows, which is to say that um, that a user can't just exclusively receive a currency with no additional or further utility for that, because then the only outlet is to convert that into something else that does have value or maintains value for them, right? So in our case, it's building flows wherein users are incentivized, motivated, or required to retain their earnings and use that, whether that's for operational expenses or through some other means of value accrual, accretion, and utility for themselves. So like the in the case of land operations, mining production, their cost inputs will be denominated in Atlas. Their rewards effectively are in the minting of NFTs, which can then ultimately be converted into some form of currency, whether it's USDC on our marketplace or Atlas on our marketplace. But what's important there is that they're not necessarily receiving inflationary Atlas. They're actually receiving an asset that is in demand from another user. And so it's kind of creating flows like that throughout the entire economy. But to get back on a little bit on the way that we kind of structure or the way that we're perceiving, say, the metaverse economy, internally, the way that we structure our team is to think in terms of we're still employing these positions, by the way. So if there's anyone out there with an economic background, please reach out to us, jobs@staratlas.com. But we think in terms of a chief economist as being the primary head of the department that is the economics department. This differs from development traditional studios that would hire a chief game economist to focus on those kind of closed, permission-based economies. We think that way because, again, we treat this kind of like a nation state. And so we need somebody that has comprehension of the way that global economies and country economies operate. And then within that department, it's head of game economy, head of token economy, because this is very unique. Tokenomics, is something that arose with the advent of cryptocurrency, and thinking about game theory and utility theory behind tokens and cryptocurrencies is important to us because we don't have an isolated closed border. The very nature of our product is that the currency earned within the game environment can immediately transcend that into the real world economy or financial ecosystem, which is crypto, and ultimately into the fiat ecosystem. So head of token economy, and then also, our head of monetization, which is a role that thinks critically about alternative paths for us to monetize our business, but also thinking critically about how we can create value exchange with the users, with the participants. This, again, is one of the biggest disruptors and differentiators in the way that we operate. Is everybody that participates in our ecosystem actually has the potential to share in the value that is created. And then data analysts, data scientists, and general economists will also fill out that department. So we're going to be hiring extensively for all of those roles, and it's making sure that we're analyzing what's going on within the broad market economy, within the crypto economy, and thinking about things like DeFi and DAOs and what the evolution of that is, and getting regular reports on what the progression of the industry looks like, and then integrating the best elements of the evolution of these products into what we're building at Star Atlas.
Yeah, I think that's really incredible, just in the sense that you guys are understanding the magnitude here. Instead of having something like a chief game economist, you're really looking to level it up and build a whole team around this, whether it's analysts, economists, tokenomics, people that are specializing in that. And then obviously someone at the top who has and is very much educated in how, like you were saying, the real world operates and how to create these sustainable loops and creating this economy. I think it's just very interesting. And I keep circling back here, but it just goes back to this entire thing that you guys are building. You understand the magnitude of it, and you're looking to address these things in the right way, whether it's at the level of creating a game, at the as you were saying, the one of the core things you guys look is to have the game stand alone and be able to be fun. But then you're going a step above and it's like, okay, we do have this open economy hooked up. How do we do this the best possible way? And what stood out to me and is most important is it needs to be monitored. It's a constant game of, and well, yeah, game for lack of terms of game theory of some sense of adjusting this economy and making sure that it is staying efficient. And so it sounds like you guys are building out a whole team for this, which is really incredible.
There's yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback, and there's again just this huge requirement for highly specialized, sophisticated operations across every element of what we're building. I mean, the people that we have on, in directors roles that are focused on even designing, developing a game, creating a character, creating a ship model, by the way, which is in and of itself a complex activity. To take something from two-dimensional concept art and to create a fully functional modeled spaceship for which you can walk around the interior. And we're factoring in things like, what is the internal aesthetic design of a ship, and how functional is it to actually walk around, and where are the crew quarters, and where's the mess hall, and where's the captain's quarters, like actually architecting these ships and recruiting people that have that sophistication to do it at the very nuanced low level detail level, but then all the way up to the macro level across the entire ecosystem as well. So it's going to take enormous talent and time, but we have that long-term approach, as we discussed. We're thinking in very long time horizons here, but we also feel that we have a pretty substantial responsibility to get this right. We think humbly think that in many ways we're a beacon to other participants in the space, and we hope that people in the future can model their own products off of the successes that we've encountered and the way that we've developed out our product. And we think that will lead to better, more innovative products and projects across the space as a whole.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just because you put out that opportunity there, I want to dive into the nitty gritty a little bit and just talk about the ships that you guys have put out, and then maybe elaborate just a little more the actual role in the ecosystem these NFT ships play for users. So a little two-part question there. Where are you guys at with the ship design? And then maybe try to elaborate a bit more on how these actually play a role in there. Why would users want these ships?
Yeah. Well, so starting in September of last year, we rolled out what we called the Galactic asset offering. So this was the initial sale of ship NFTs. We had sold anywhere from 2 to 5 ships on a periodic basis. This could have been in a week or in a month, but we ultimately sold 27 ship models, ranging in size from extra small up to our commander class. There's I think 7 classes in there: extra small, small, medium, large, capital, commander. Those are like the various sizes of these ships, and they range from something like 3 meters for the extra small to 7 kilometers on our Titan ships, which actually haven't been sold yet. But I mean, we're talking city size Titan class ships that will be floating around space at some point. So we sold 27 ships over the course of last year. We actually sold out 100% of our inventory going into the first week of January. This was something like close to $200 million in revenue for what it's worth. And the motivation for people in purchasing these ships was largely the release of our first gameplay feature. So again, what's important to us is that we can kind of share in the exchange of value with our users as we build this product out and release it iteratively over time. It is going to take many years for us to build out and realize the full vision of the gaming product. But in the meantime, we want to release features that are enjoyable, but also deliver value back. And so Score was the first feature release that we launched in really through our marketplace, but this is actually where a web-based mini game will live as well. semi-reduced functionality and not the full graphical fidelity that you'll have if you're launching the game client and playing in Unreal Engine. But a lot of the same financial incentives, or all of the same financial incentives and mechanics, will exist there. And so Score is a kind of a light ship mission module in which you can actually enlist your ships with the faction. You're managing a set of 4 resources. That's the food, fuel, repair, and ammunition. And to the extent that you maintain those resources across your ship, then you are actually earning Atlas for doing so. So that was the first step in bootstrapping the economy, was the distribution of rewards based on enlisting your ships to the faction. Coming later this year, sometime around mid-year, actually, we'll have another major feature release where the gameplay mechanics are more robust and more interactive than with Score. But I guess to your point, that's the reason, one of the primary reasons and drivers. And what we're seeing is, across our marketplace, ships are predominantly sold for Atlas right now. We have a blend of USDC that we accept in Atlas. 80% of all new ship inventory coming online is sold in Atlas. And what we're seeing a lot of people do is take their earnings from Score and then purchase more ships and continuously enhance their fleet, building bigger and bigger fleets. So that is kind of the initial economic loop, is that, again, if there was nowhere for Atlas to go, people would probably be selling it, or, there are other options out there, things like participating in liquidity pools, whether that's Orca or Radium, participating in lending on Tulip. So there are options out there, but it's important for us to create this system wherein there's a requirement to kind of retain what you've earned and put that back into the economy in some way. And so that will continue to get more refined over time. But going into this year, though, we do have another, I want to say 51 ships that are fully spec'd out. In totality, there's about 140 ships of various sizes and various classes and various kind of operational motives. I mentioned some of those, but it could be a stealth ship, could be a fighter ship, could be a transport ship, a freighter. All of these ships will have specific uses across the economy as well. So, for example, if you're a land operator and you're extracting resources, those will need to be transported from planet to planet and from solar system to solar system. Now, if you either kind of own the horizontal integration and where you're able to transport yourself, or you engage with another player to transport those materials on your behalf to another destination. And so that's really where the ships will be fitting in. But also just being able to go out in deep space where it's very high risk. It's permanent death and permanent burn of NFTs upon destruction out there, but pirating other ships, flying around as a fighter with a fleet of your own or a bunch of your friends and ganking people out in deep space, we think will be fun.
Yeah, that's incredible just to hear about all the mechanics there and truly the design that is going into all of this. I know you mentioned that taking these ships and putting them into 3D models is no short task by any mean. I'm curious, just to poke a little bit further here, how has the general development been? I know I was checking a bit at your guys' patch notes, and it seems like you guys have been sharing a lot of models and things to that extent. I'm just curious, how has the development been so far, and what's the general pulse you've gotten on it overall?
But I mean, internally, we see how much work goes into every single little feature release, something that even appears to be, small to the general public. We know just how much thought and energy goes into like analyzing every component of every single thing that gets released from us and wanting to ensure that we maintain those, best in class standards across our deliverables. So, I've seen us make enormous progress just over the past few months. And realistically, the first 3 quarters of last year were spent in the development of, bringing up, like announcing ourselves, building community, working closely with Solana, by the way. You guys were fantastic in helping us bootstrap our initial community by
And
bringing us.
yeah, I just want to footnote real quick that we're actually not particularly a part of Solana by any means. We're just third party news source there. So just wanted to footnote that in. I know you mentioned something like that a little earlier on. Didn't know if you just slipped a little bit, but just wanted to make that clear that Solana has just been great in general, and we've been able to just come on and bring third-party news there. But sorry, just wanted to throw that in
No,
there for you, Michael.
totally my fault. Thanks for clearing that up. And there's plenty of news across Solana, so I I can get why you guys
Definitely.
are out there talking about it. So nevertheless, working closely with Solana early on and helping us build our initial community and just like bringing the concept to light was fantastic for us. But then we executed on the Rebirth campaign, which ran from April to July of 2021, and this was pure digital art. These multimedia meta posters that we brought out. There were 14 different posters in a series, and primarily collectibles, but enhanced with augmented reality, and having worked with some mainstream musicians and producers like Blondish and Bassjackers and Deadmau5 on these posters. So we spent a lot of time on that campaign. And that was part of our marketplace debut. When we started this out, by the way, tools like Metaplex weren't around yet. We really preceded a lot of that. We were the first to build this fully functional NFT marketplace on Solana. It was exclusive to our product, and we didn't set out to be a marketplace builder, but we needed to bring our NFTs to market, right? So we spent a lot of last year on things like this. It wasn't really until September, after the rollout of our token generation event on FTX, that we were able to really fully focus on what we wanted to accomplish in game development. And still, within that short time period, we brought the first game feature to market in December, and now we have a great roadmap ahead of us. My cat is fine. She let's get a little jealous if you hear her back there yelling. She's a little bit of attention seeker, but nevertheless, we've got a great roadmap ahead of us this year on what gameplay features will look like. And the final point I'll make here is, really 2 points. One, we're building across multiple environments. So we're building a web-based game, which is really the initial deployment of all of our features. Concurrently, we have a separate full production team that's building out an Unreal Engine. So mid-year, some thereabouts, we'll have another major enhancement to the minigame. But at the same time, we're planning on rolling out the first module of Unreal Engine, which is something that we call the Volant Studio Showroom. And players will be able to enter into this immersive environment, call in their ships, walk around their ships, view the interiors, make purchases, participate in ship configuration. And also, if not immediately upon release, shortly thereafter, we will have multiplayer functionality in place. So you can go and socialize, whether that's with your guild or with other random players, but you guys can all run around in the showroom together. So all of that's coming this year. And, believe it or not, this is actually a highly expedited timeline for delivery of all of this functionality. I said there were 2 points. Really, in closing, the second point is that we're taking the most challenging approach to game development within the blockchain. So I kind of categorize this across 3 different paths to consider, what would be considered a blockchain game. And the first is building exclusively in a traditional game engine like Unity or Unreal, and simply introducing NFTs as an asset class. That's the easiest way to build because there's well-documented playbook on how to execute on that and how to build in these environments. Then there's the integration of crypto native assets as the foundational unit of the economy. We're naturally doing that with Atlas and Polis. And then the most difficult is to actually build logic that lives on chain. So not deferring all of the logic to the way that the game engine operates, but building that into smart contracts. And that is the approach that we're taking. So when you interact with Score, for example, when you refuel a ship, it would be very easy for us to say, well, this is just it's gonna happen in the game engine, right? All Web 2.0. That action just gets recorded in a database. We could have done that, but we didn't. We built a smart contract that accounts for users' action. And so there's a historical record of every ship and every time it's refueled, every time it's replenished food, ammunition, or repaired itself. All of that lives historically on the Solana blockchain. And so, incorporating all of that means that it's more difficult, but it also means that in the future, with this motivation of being fully decentralized, we can actually execute on that. Because even if at some point we step away as the central studio that's building this, because it's now managed by people from all over the world, well, the infrastructure was designed from the ground up to facilitate these open, permissionless, censorship-resistant systems.
Yeah, that's really amazing to hear, and just how you guys are looking to leverage the best aspects of gaming, but then really fill that gap of things that are missing. I mean, being a gamer myself in the past, people are looking for these open economies regardless. They look to set them up on their own, but then taking that next step and getting this integration with Web3, where users are able to do this in a decentralized and trustless manner instead of having to do something shady going on secondary marketplaces. It is truly incredible. And just hearing how the development process is coming along and the team that you guys are putting into it. Something that I think is really unique here that doesn't change across any of these. I think within Web3, we've found that communities are massively important as we move forward, but this is no different in something like traditional gaming. How has it been onboarding the community, and how do you guys look to continue growing this while you're in your development stages?
Community is the heart of Star Atlas, right? Like, I mean, it's the heart of any company. I don't care what it is that you're selling. I mean, if you don't have the consumer, then you don't have a business. But more than that, our community to us are contributors to design, to philosophy, to ethos, to the development itself. I think one of the things that we um, um, execute quite effectively is just accounting for user feedback consistently, hearing people, listening to our community, listening to the concerns, and actually communicating with them, not keeping them in the dark, because we do have a long road ahead of us. We do want people to know what we're doing. We want people to know that development is taking place. Just because it's not something that's immediately obvious doesn't mean that a lot of work isn't being done. So one is communicating with them, but also hearing concerns, empathizing with people. We're consumers too, right? We all buy things. We all have to buy things. So but more than that, it's treating the people that are part of our community today as really, in a way, part of the team. And contributing to, again, what the long-term vision actually will be. And I think that resonates really well with our community. Where we see a lot of activity right now, by the way, is I made this somewhat cryptic comment quite a while ago, but it was, the game's already being played, and it is in so many ways. There's the kind of ethereal game that people are playing, which is theory crafting and getting a better understanding of things like attributes and forming strategies and recruiting guildmates, by the way. I mean, all of these things are taking place right now. People are preparing themselves for war. They're preparing themselves to play and participate in this ecosystem in the future. Yeah, you can't fly around space and attack another spaceship right now, but the people who are actually taking that time to plan and prepare now are going to be better equipped in the future. So we're seeing that happen in the community. And we're very active with things like hosting regular town halls wherein it's a live Q&A. Every 2 weeks, I'm there giving an update with people from my team. We're giving updates of what's going on behind the scenes, and we're opening the floor up for people to ask questions to us. And so again, it's that sense of inclusion that we want to continue to cultivate, and we think it resonates quite well with our community.
Yeah, that's really amazing to hear. And that's just something I wanted to bring up because as we move forward, especially in this Web3 climate, community, as we've both said, seems to be an onus of a lot of these things. And sticking on this idea of crypto and Web3 landscape, I'm curious with how fast the space moves, how does Star Atlas look to stay on top of a lot of things? I mean, it feels like tides change very quickly in the crypto and Web3 market. How difficult is it building something as robust as Star Atlas while it seems like there's so many just undercurrents that are always switching directions?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like building on quicksand, right? Because a lot of the technology that we're using is in some type of alpha state, and Solana, Beta Network, Project Serum, the decentralized exchange protocol, which was the basis of our marketplace. That's beta software, and then working in Unreal Engine 5, where it's all early access, and so there's a lot of uncertainties in what we're doing. But what I think is really cool is, obviously we can't share this with everyone, but if you were to see our internal Discord, for example, anytime something innovative gets released, whether it's on Twitter or some other social media where it's being shared, our team has already identified it. Reports coming out, JP Morgan report, the hour it was released, somebody posted it in one of our news channels. So people are on the lookout for these things. So one is just we have these people on our team that are very passionate about crypto in general and love seeing this innovation and love sharing that with the rest of the team, but then also focusing internally on having those analysts who identify those opportunities and identify the changes in landscape. So we just onboarded a GameFi analyst who's out there doing an assessment of every single gaming product that's being released on chain right now, and will produce a report for us that we can internalize, and we can use that information to improve anything that we build. And same thing with DeFi. We're bringing on a DeFi analyst who's looking at the opportunities across DeFi, because we see these elements, these primitive protocols, as being beneficial features for all of our users. And just kind of in closing here, one thought is, if you're earning money in a job in the real world today, what do? You deposit that into a bank account. Your bank account earns nothing right now. And in fact, after inflation, you're losing money. You're losing purchasing power every single year. Well, okay, there's certainly some risk in DeFi. I want to be very clear about that. But, we have the opportunity to introduce our players who are earning in the form of cryptocurrency to then utilize some of these protocols to compound, grow their wealth as well. Now, we're not building the protocols, but we can at least inform them that they exist. And so it's important for us to understand where all of those opportunities lie. And the final piece is really in things like decentralized governance, which is also in its earliest stages, and no real clear roadmap for how best to execute. And in fact, if you think about government historically across humanity, nobody's really figured it out,
That's what I love saying about all of these as well. Like, governance is so great. And then I always love asking the question that you just answered yourself and tacking on there. Like, when we look at what's going on in governance in general and how we govern as nations, we still haven't figured this out yet. So I just think it's great, all the things we're adding into crypto and what it can turn out to be. Just had to jump in there because I always like to tack that one on.
Yeah, I mean, societies historically have collapsed. I think the longest running societies are a couple hundred years. So hopefully we can do things better. And hopefully with technology and with accountability and transparency, we can improve upon governance systems. And we get to experiment with that. But let's make sure we call it what it is, which is really a grand experiment. And everyone should be comfortable with participating in that, knowing that there's no real certainty on the outcome in anything that we're doing, regardless of whatever across Star Atlas, but also just as people in the world as well.
Definitely. And really starting to tie things up here, I think we got to back to a high level place where we can wrap this up. There's so many details here, and there's tons of places where users can jump in and learn about this. Just sifting through the Star Atlas Twitter, finding you guys on your website. You guys also have a bunch of patch notes you guys have been putting out, or development notes you guys have been putting out on Notion. So that's been great for people who really want to follow up and pinpoint exactly where you guys are. That's where I would point users who are very interested. It was great kind of jumping in there, seeing where you guys were at with the models before I jumped on here. So that's where I would like to point any users. And I'll let you wrap it up after this last question here, Michael, if you think there's places that users should look. But really, while we're on these high level topics, talking about the innovation, how you guys are really just making sure you understand how the landscape is changing so you can be there, react, and pivot when it's needed. And that seems to be very important in this space. And you guys are specifically identifying roles on your team to do that. I'm curious, what are some things just in broad that you are excited for? Maybe one or two things for Star Atlas in the mid to long term, and then something just for blockchain, crypto, and Solana. So a little broad two-part question there to end things off.
Look, starting with Star Atlas, what I didn't really mention is that many of us on the team, and including the co-founders, are longtime gamers. People that have heard my interviews in the past know that I mentioned this computer group that I was a part of in high school. We called ourselves the Lanarchists back in the local area networking days. And so there's place in my heart that will always exist for gaming, and still a gamer now. And so, I'm very excited about getting the space exploration real Unreal Engine version of the game out and starting to roll that out. That's just on a personal level. Um, Clearly delivering these features to users consistently over time, to our players, to our community over time is very important to us, and ensuring that people are satisfied with what we're bringing out to market. So that's on Star Atlas. As kind of a mathematician of sorts, and I'd almost say ex-finance guy, but still, financial centered. I love seeing the innovation in DeFi, by the way, just kind of experimenting with all of these protocols that are coming out, finding ways to compound my own money, with how to optimize yield and earnings for myself in so many ways. I don't know if people fully comprehend this, but in so many ways, DeFi itself was the first gaming application on blockchain. Because, think about things like yield farming, right? Where you're borrowing from here, and then you're with leverage, and then you're depositing over here, and you're generating higher yield there. So you've got a net positive spread on borrowing versus earnings. And, so there's strategy there. There's strategy there that's very gamified if you kind of look deeply enough at it. So that's what I'm interested in blockchain, is seeing this continuous innovation, but also seeing gaming come more to the forefront of blockchain as well. And Solana, what can I say? Solana has just been killing it. So I don't. I guess I'd just be kind of curious to see how well they continue to manage this explosive growth. I have no criticisms. People have asked about, some of the downtime that Solana experienced. They're victims of their own success. We're seeing more users, more transactions, more innovation, more projects building on Solana than any other layer one, almost every other layer one combined, probably. And so, sure, you're going to experience some growing pains, but I have absolute confidence in the team that's working at Solana and being able to work through these and continuously deliver what we think is a superior layer one protocol.
Yeah. And just to really wrap that up on that end, I think it's very obvious why we're both here, because of the fact of the underlying technology that Solana has been able to build. And as I was saying before here, we were just talking about hacker houses and where crypto's at around the world. And I'm here in Mountain DAO, which isn't an official Solana hacker house, but it's one put on by the community. And you also have this world tour track that has been running all throughout. There was Chicago, LA, Seattle. I think they're in Moscow now, going to New York and the Bahamas. And it's just incredible watching the talent pour into the ecosystem. And something that I've been thinking of recently is just the more talent and developers you have is really a leading indicator. Because if you have these people building innovative DApps, even things like Star Atlas games, complete games, that's what really attracts the users. And as you said, it's been Solana really just playing this game of, okay, how many users can we onboard? How much data can we support? And they continue to just push the limits on that. So
Mhm.
I think that's something, as you touched on, is incredibly exciting that's coming up in the near future. And I think that's a great note to end it off here, Michael. I don't know if you want to wrap this up with anything. I just want to thank you for coming on. And other than that, I'll probably wrap this up for the both of us if you don't have any comments there.
No, Greg, it was great, man. Really appreciate the time. Some great questions. Really enjoyed the discussion. The only thing I would say in closing is I would encourage anyone out there that's interested in Star Atlas to just join us on our Discord. We've got a great Twitter you can follow us on if you want some updates and some kind of content drops of the creative that we're releasing. But in terms of community, our Discord is fantastic. The people there are very helpful, very communicative. And again, strategies are being formed now. So come join us, discord.gg/Star Atlas. But otherwise, thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate being on.
Yeah, amazing having you on, Michael, and looking forward to the developments that are coming out of Star Atlas. Awesome. So I'm just going to wrap this up real quick here. Michael and I were talking for about an hour, so I'm not going to spend too long wrapping this up. I just want to touch on a couple high level things, like the actual ethos that the Star Atlas team is bringing to blockchain gaming, really understanding the developments, building out an entire team of engineers and understanding the work that goes into the art. And then even on the side of an open economy, building out roles and not just treating it like a game economy, thinking in broad terms, looking at how typical economies work and how these can be leveraged, and looking at just how to optimize and constantly monitor. I also think a really other big point is the idea that a lot of this is very nascent and it's an experiment. So jumping into this, it's important that users understand this, but it does give a nice vote of confidence to see all of the undertakings behind Star Atlas. And we only really scratched the surface. There's so much going on. So I'm just going to leave that one here. And as Michael recommended, I would just say it's amazing for you guys to go check out the Discord. That seems like where most things are happening. Other than that, please go ahead and retweet the tweet if you guys are watching on Twitter, or go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. Until next time, thanks everybody for joining. Peace out.